And so he says, I didn't come to bring peace. I didn't come to bring peace, he says, but I came to bring a sword. The sword against the righteous is going to be the response of religious reprobates. For, verse 35, for I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies will be those of his own household. He says it right there. A man's enemies will be those of his own household. He said, I came to set the one thing he says in here that I thought, to me, is sometimes kind of comical. He said, I came to set a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Well, sometimes it don't take the word to do that, does it? But anyway, he says, a man's enemies will be those of his own household. What he's saying, daughter-in-law, mother-in-law, daughter, son, whoever, your own house, all of the same household. And he says, I have come, my presence is going to cause a division. My word, the sword I bring, the word I bring is going to cause a division. And he's not speaking of only immediate family, but listen, sometimes church family. Do you know churches split up so many times? They fall out with one another primarily. How can I say this nicely? Primarily because of ignorance of the word. Sometimes, ashamed to say, even some of the pastors don't know the word well enough. And they split, they get bent out of shape and fall out over things. Listen, they fall out over things that are just most time unscriptural because they have an ignorance of the word. I've said before for years, and I keep on saying it until I see something different. Most church splits are unbiblical, and the ones that are biblical, there's only two that I can think of. When a church splits, they've gotten to a large, a good size, large size. They may become a mega church, and they're going to start another church in another location over in another city, another town, neighboring town, or whatever. And some of those peel off to help start that new church. That's biblical. That's biblical. It's okay to do that. Nobody's mad and falling out with one another. They're just going to help build a new church. That's biblical. The other reason, biblically speaking, that if a church splits up, it has to be because of some sort of unbiblical, unfounded heresy that's going on in that church where the Word of God is not being preached. There's a heretical message being delivered. And so cases like that, there's sometimes that it's time to come out from among them. That's the only two biblical church splits I can think of that the Bible tells us about, teaches us about. So anything else, 9 out of 10 times, most times it's not either one of those two reasons. Most of the time, it's just because of they didn't paint the walls color I wanted. Well, show me that in the Bible. Amen. Well, I don't like that color carpet they laid down. I'm going somewhere. They didn't listen to my advice and do what I thought they ought to do, so I'm going somewhere else. Well, show me that in the Bible. Well, Sister so-and-so, her youngins get to sing more than my youngins get to sing. Show me that in the Bible. You can name about any church split you want to name, and I will tell you, show me that in the Bible. Because it's simply put, it's not there. And listen, we in the church, we've got to mature. We've got to grow up. And quit falling out over such nonsense and foolishness as that. Something that ain't worth, as my mom used to say, a hill of beans. We have got to stop falling out over these things. I'm about to land the plane, I promise you. So, Jesus said our life wasn't going to be an easy life. He said that we're sheep among wolves. He said that we're to be sword bearers. And let me close out with this. We're to be cross bearers. Now let's break this down for a bit. Here in the same chapter of Matthew 10, look at verse 37. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Now, Lord, that just don't seem to be fair. Jesus, what do you mean by such a state? That just doesn't seem right. He who loves father or mother more than me, he says, is not worthy of me. Christ must come first in all things. Has to. Again, I was on this about family relationships a couple weeks ago, and the biggest battle we will have in 9 out of 10 cases is going to be with our family. And so he has to come first. Listen, if you put him first, it may not be popular, but things will work out eventually. If we put him first, indeed, really put him first.